This is the iPhone mini, and in my opinion, it's the most perfect iPhone ever made. It has the optimal form factor for one-handed use. It discourages infinite scrolling because of the screen size. It has a super functional camera system with a very minimal camera bump. There is a physical SIM slot, and the best thing is it's still being officially supported by Apple in 2025 with every update. Last year, I tried upgrading to the iPhone 15 Pro, but after a month of using that phone, I actually decided to go back to the iPhone mini. So in this video, I want to talk about why I think the iPhone mini is still one of the best phones that you can buy, even 4 years later. How I've made it into a productivity machine with the layout and the customizations that I put on there. And at the end, I also want to share a pretty game-changing update that Apple made that has really transformed the way that I use this phone and can transform the way that I use any iPhone. So first, let me talk about some of the best features of the iPhone mini that make it so irreplaceable as someone who's been using it for the past 5 years. First, the best thing is obviously the form factor. Compared to modern phones in 2025 that seem to just get larger or thinner without actually making it easier to hold, the iPhone mini is such a perfect form factor for daily use. It fits perfectly in one hand, the camera bump is reasonable, and it actually feels pretty uncompromising. I think this is one of the most impressive parts of this phone because they've basically been able to fit everything that a modern phone has with payments, with camera, with MagSafe, without really compromising any features. Unlike an SE iPhone, which is larger, the iPhone mini at a smaller form factor still has MagSafe, it has 2 cameras, it has a physical SIM card slot and dual speakers, which the latest iPhone Air doesn't have. So I have this appreciation for the engineering that must have gone behind creating this phone into this form factor. The camera bump is also a very reasonable size compared to the latest iPhones, so you can actually set it down on the table without it rocking a lot. But speaking of the camera, this is actually one of my favorite things about this device, and in some ways it's actually better than the latest iPhones. When I look back at the photos I took with my iPhone mini versus the iPhone 15 Pro, I actually think that the photos I took on my mini were more aesthetic and had better framing. And I think the reason for that is just because the mini had a simpler system. So I was thinking about the camera less. Because you only have a wide angle lens and a 24mm lens, it forces me to be more intentional about how I frame my shots instead of switching between different lenses. When I tested a Pro model iPhone, I found that I would rarely use the 5x or 10x lens, and it was only really useful if I was taking a picture of something like a poster from half a mile away, which was really a rare occurrence. And also from a technical perspective, one pretty nerdy thing that I noticed is that the minimum focus distance on the iPhone mini is actually better than the latest iPhones. So what that basically means is that with the latest iPhones, there's a further minimum distance that you have to hold your camera from an object for it to stay in focus. Whereas the iPhone mini, you can hold it closer while having it stay in focus. The way that they solve this with the latest iPhones is that it automatically switches to the 0.5x lens, but then you get a worse quality and worse looking photo. So if you take photos or videos of things up close, like for example, of food, then the iPhone mini, in my opinion, is actually a better camera. Realistically, if you compare an iPhone mini photo next to an iPhone 17 Pro photo, there's only going to be a very, very marginal distance, and 99% of people won't even be able to tell the difference. But where you might notice a difference with the iPhone mini is this next part, which is the display. So compared to the latest iPhones, the iPhone mini has a slower refresh rate at 60 Hz compared to 120 Hz. But for me, I actually prefer that refresh rate. On one hand, the slower refresh rate makes the battery more efficient. But on the other, I also feel like it makes the phone less addicting. When I was using a 120 Hz display iPhone, I felt like the UI was almost like crack in terms of how fluid and smooth it was. I will say that compared to the latest iPhone, when you're outside on a super sunny day, it might be harder to read stuff on your phone compared to the new ones because they're physically brighter. But what I do is when I go outside, I use light mode, and it hasn't really been a big issue. The real only downside of the iPhone mini is the battery life. The newer iPhones have nearly double the battery life of the iPhone mini. So if you compare it to the latest phones, you're definitely not going to have great battery life. But there were a few specific things that I did that really fixed it completely and has even given me 2-day battery life sometimes when I'm not using my phone that much. I did replace my battery once, but that was after 3 years of using it, and the battery health also degraded to something like 85%. Once I upgraded the battery, it made a huge difference. The actual process was super simple. I just walked into a random Apple store, I dropped off my phone, and then 2 hours later, I had a brand new battery for something like $80. A few other things I did that dramatically increased the battery life of this phone was, first, I use battery saver all the time. I wouldn't use the phone at full brightness. And instead of using 5G for data, I would use 4G, or sometimes I would just turn off cellular data if I'm not using it. Apple also used to sell this battery pack that came out with the iPhone mini that fits perfectly, which basically doubles the battery life. So if I have a long day that I know I'll be using my phone a lot, like maybe if I'm at the airport or going to Disneyland or something, then I'll stick this on and it basically doubles the battery life. Using this phone has really forced me to learn these habits that helped conserve battery life. So if you're considering using a phone like this, then you'll probably have to do something similar. But the next thing I want to talk about with the iPhone mini is the SIM card tray, which I think is underappreciated. The iPhone mini supports both eSIM and a physical SIM card, which makes it convenient because if I'm traveling, a lot of times I can just buy a physical SIM card if I see it in the convenience store. When I was in Japan recently, that's what I did, and I got a physical SIM card that could call and have data, and I could just put it into this phone right here. But having that physical SIM card also made it convenient when I was testing different dumb phones on this channel. Like I could pop out my SIM card, I could use another dumb phone for a few weeks, and just switch back when I wanted to. Even though this phone has been discontinued for the past 2 years, one thing that I want to emphasize as someone using this is that it does not feel outdated in any way. Apple still provides software updates and support for repairs on this phone. And that's one of the things I really like about Apple devices. Based on their track history, they support the devices for up to 5 to 6 years, even after they discontinue them. So that means I can still use this phone for the next 3 to 4 years, and I still get security updates, the latest software, and if I break the screen or need to repair the battery, I can still do that at an official Apple store. Also, I did test the iPhone mini on the latest iOS 26. So if you're curious about the performance of that, I'm going to talk about that later in the video. So it's pretty far from being a vintage phone for hipsters. The only thing that's slightly outdated on this phone is probably the Lightning connector, because most of my other devices are USB-C. But for this, when I travel, I just have this adapter that works with my USB-C cable. All right, so now I want to share with you the actual setup that I use that I think is perfect for the iPhone mini and has helped me make this a productivity machine. So this is called the modern dumb phone setup, and it's basically a completely free setup that you can use to help you reduce distractions and your screen time on your phone. I made a whole video about how you can set this up on iPhone, Android, which I'll link, but to give you a quick overview and some of the things I changed with it, it's basically a super clean home screen layout with a widget on top and text-based app icons with no notifications or badges. One new thing I've been experimenting with lately is that I've set it up so that it's actually an automation when I turn on Do Not Disturb to show this layout. So when I turn off Do Not Disturb, then it shows me a normal home screen layout with all the apps that I use on my phone. And when I want to focus, then I turn on Do Not Disturb and it shows me that clean layout. I've also set it up so that Do Not Disturb automatically turns on at certain places, like at the gym and at certain times of the day. And it also blocks certain apps when Do Not Disturb is on. Recently, Apple just released iOS 26, which has this liquid glass feature, and I tested it on the iPhone mini. Surprisingly, it actually runs pretty smoothly. It's super snappy and it feels even faster than iOS 18. The only downside I've seen with this is that it might break the text-based home screen if you use that. So if you're set on using that, then maybe hold off updating for now. But in the latest iOS, there's this one new feature that they quietly added that allows anyone to make their phone into a dumb phone, and it's called Accessibility Access. So let me just show you what it looks like. So I swipe down the control center, I hit Accessibility Access, and I enter a password. After that, it changes the home screen to a few apps that I select. When I click into the apps, it works the same as you would expect. But the benefit of doing this is that there are no other distractions. You choose just the apps that you want enabled. And for periods of time that you don't want to be excessively using your phone, or even in the mornings, for example, where you don't want to be checking social media, you can use this mode and even have someone else set a password for you. But yeah, maybe this is all just cope or justification so that I don't need to upgrade to the latest iPhone. But I really wish that Apple revives the iPhone mini line someday in the future. Honestly, I would probably pay more than double just for it, but for now, I'm going to continue using my iPhone mini until it dies. If you also use an iPhone mini, I'm really curious how many people there are out there, so definitely let me know in the comments below. But I'll see you in the next video. Let's get it.